भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीर्उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। We'll begin the 16th chapter we began yesterday. Praise of King Pruthu by the professional reciters. The Suta, Magadha and Mandi, they were pleased with by hearing the Pruthu Maharaj's words, and then they praised Pruthu Maharaj as an order by the sages. So the word Muni Chodita, yesterday we discussed about the point of how they glorified Pruthu Maharaj according to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. In the Dashamula Tattva, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains about the importance of accepting the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara. The sense, sometimes a person may accept one guru in the Sampradaya, but he may not accept the entire Parampara. Then he says that such kind of followers are the deceptive followers. So those persons who do not accept the bona fide nature of the Brahma Sampradaya cannot inspire faith in the evidences of the Shastra. So Brahma, the creator of the universe, is a disciple of the Lord of the spiritual sky, the disciple of Krishna. Persons who do not accept this are referred to in the Srimad Bhagavatam as teachers of atheistic viewpoints. Furthermore, those who accept Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sampradaya from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but secretly deny the self-perfected process of Guru Parampara, are certainly no better than the followers of Kali Yuga. So in truth, only the most fortunate of souls recognize the unadulterated Vedic knowledge flowing down to us through an unbroken chain of spiritual masters. So the point is, sometimes one may accept one person in the Guru Parampara, but if he does not accept the entire Parampara, then he is a deceptive follower. It's like he's mainly, it's more like he's part of the personality cult. Because when we just like for example, say even in a marriage, so when the girl say accepts gets married to a boy, it's not simply that person, but you also respect the other people related to that husband, like the entire family. The Western idea is of the marriage is very individualistic. They may not have connection with the, say, the in-laws or the other relatives of the husband. But that normally in a marriage, that when you establish connection with that individual person, either the wife or the husband, the connection to the entire family is established. So similarly, like in the spiritual, when we accept a particular guru, it is not just to the individual person, but through that person, we are supposed to accept the entire Guru Parampara. That's why any real guru, suppose if a follower accepts him, but the follower does not show proper respect to the Guru Parampara, and the guru would be very unhappy and he would immediately chastise the disciple. Like we know, I think that Prabhupada pastime comes in Lilamrit, how I think it was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day or disappearance day, how the devotees had not made proper arrangements, had not made any arrangements or improper arrangements for celebration of that day. So Prabhupada was very unhappy and he chastised them, and then he himself went to the kitchen and then he cooked khichdi and he cooked different items. So therefore, but this tendency is also there. In Kali Yuga, we find the personality cult centered around, say, film star or a cricket star or a political leader. So sometimes, because this phenomenon is very much prevalent in the current times, same things, when people come from that background, sometimes the same thing can also come in the spiritual field, where a person follows a person, one follows a particular person, a spiritual leader, but does not show proper respect to the parampara. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that even if a person accepts Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but if he secretly denies the self-perfected process of Guru Parampara, then he is nothing but a follower of Kali Yuga, the age of degradation. So Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, when we talk about accepting the Guru, Sadhus, it is the entire Guru Parampara. And Shastra also, as I mentioned, that in the Amnaya Sutra, the Dashamula Tattva, in the first, this one, Amnaya Sutra, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the entire Vedic literatures as the pramana. We accept the entire Vedic literatures. Yeah, going ahead, second verse. Nalam vayam te mahimanu varnane yo deva varyo vatatara mayaya venanga jatasya cha paurushani te vachaspatinaamapi babramurdi vachaspatinaamapi babramurdiyah.
The reciters continued, Dear King, you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and by his causeless mercy you have descended on this earth. Therefore, it is not possible for us to actually glorify your exalted activities. Although you have appeared through the body of King Vena, even great orators and speakers like Lord Brahma and other demigods cannot exactly describe the glorious activities of your lordship.
So here they are saying that na alam vayamte mahima anuvarnane. We are not capable of describing the glories of you, mahima anuvarnane. And you are the Deva Varya, the best of the Devas. Avatatara Mayaya. You appear in this world, Mayaya, by your mercy. Prabhupada comments on the word Mayaya. And Venanga Jatasya cha Paurushanite. Vachaspatinam. Vachaspatinam means the intelligence, the eloquent persons. Vachaspati. Those who are masters of the tongue, or the eloquent people. Diyaha, the intelligence. Vachaspatinam diyaha, the intelligence of the eloquent persons, such as intelligence of the eloquent person, such as Brahma, has become bewildered. Babbramuhu. Brahma means becoming bewildered. Babbramuhu means has become bewildered at the activities of you, Paurushani, born from the limb of Vena. Vena Anga Jatasya. So they are expressing their limitation. Actually, we are not capable of describing you. You appear in this world out of your mercy. Actually, even in highly intelligent people who are highly eloquent people, like Brahma, even they become bewildered at the activities of you. So the word Maya means by causeless mercy. Mayavadi philosophers explain the word Maya as meaning illusion or falseness. That would mean that what? The Lord appears by illusion. But that is will carry a completely different meaning actually. Another meaning of Maya is causeless mercy. So there are two, Yoga Maya and Maha Maya. So both these Mayas are different expressions of the Lord's internal potencies. So the Lord appears through his internal potencies. Atma Maya, Ajopisan Avyayatma, Bhutanam Ishwaropisan, Prakritim Swam Adhishtaya, Sambhavami Atma Maya. Yeah, another interesting point here is that Venanga Jatasya. Venanga Jatasya means like although born out of the so-called dead body of King Vena, King Pruthu was still an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the Lord's internal potency. So here you see, Vena was a personification of sin, in the sense, was a personification of adharma. But King Pruthu, he was born from one of the limb of Vena, but still he is an incarnation of Supreme Lord. So recently, was one in one online class. So one devotee had invited one senior devotee for giving that class, some Tamil online class. And that devotee came and gave class. After that, all the people got confused actually. But he said, see, all these speakers who are speaking to you in different classes, they are all like dirty clothes. Since all these people, they have their imperfections, they are not pure, they have their anarthas, they are all like dirty clothes. And just like when you when you send pure water to the dirty cloth, like yesterday I gave that analogy, pure water which is passed to the dirty filter, what comes out is the dirty water. I gave that example for that Garbhadhan, the samskara. So he gave a similar analogy that, so all these devotees, they are not pure, they are all like dirty clothes. Even though they may speak Krishna is the Supreme Lord, they may tell you to chant Hare Krishna, that philosophy is pure, but the philosophy, that pure philosophy which is coming out of the dirty cloth, ultimately it is dirty actually. So there is no use hearing from all of them, like that I mentioned. And the devotees, all the people, they were all actually in one sense new people. They got confused actually. Should we keep hearing these classes or not? And then he said, but Prabhupada is pure. Prabhupada is perfect. But all these other people, he had a little Ritvik type of tone actually. All these other people are imperfect, so therefore, like it's like water coming through the dirty cloth, so therefore it will be dirty water. So people got little bewildered. So there was another devotee who was narrating that this class was going on and most of these new people got confused about whether to continue hearing or not. So then I was discussing that, see, the devotees, like all of us, we devotees, we are all sadhakas, we have different shortcomings. We ourselves may be practicing, say, bhajana kriya, be anishtita bhajana kriya, we have anarthas. That is true. But still the point is, the process of bhakti is independent. Krishna is independent. And Krishna can choose to appear even through a sadhaka who is having anarthas. The Krishna can actually choose to appear even through a sadhaka who is having anarthas and inspire the common people. Although the person who is speaking may be struggling, but one of the fundamental principle of bhakti or Krishna Katha, bhakti is independent, and that bhakti can choose to appear even through an imperfect person. That's why we see that that Falastuti of the Rasa Panchadhyaya, Vikriditam Rajavado Biridam Cha Vishnu, Shraddhan Vitonu Anushuniyat, Atavarnayedya, Bhaktim Param Bhagavati Pratilabhya Kamam, Khrudrogam Ashv Apahinot Achirena Dera. So one who hears this Krishna's Ras Leela with the gopis, the heart's desire of lust will be extinguished and one will attain prema bhakti like that. And if you read that purport, Vishnu Chakotipad says that it is not that even a person who is having anarthas, different shortcomings, anarthas, even when such a person hears or narrates this, the prema bhakti is not dependent on the fact that a person should be freed from anarthas. And that prema bhakti can enter even in the heart of the person who is having anarthas, and then prema bhakti will extinguish the anarthas. Like that he says. So the point is that why I'm mentioning is that this particular line which I read, although born out of the so-called dead body of King Vena, King Pruthu was still an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Pruthu is an incarnation of the Lord. Usually we see that the incarnations of the Lord, they appear from the great devotees. Devaki, Vasudeva, Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Kashyapa, Diti. But an incarnation of the Lord can appear even through the dead body of a sinful king like Vena. The Lord is not dependent on, okay, he can appear only through the pure soul. He chooses to appear through great devotees, but he is not dependent on that fact. Similarly, the Krishna can appear in the form of pure Krishna Katha even through a impure devotee, actually. So that is the independent nature of the Lord. So, of course, I was discussing with the devotee, I said that like sometimes, suppose even if suppose our immediate authority, he's not perfect, he's having shortcomings. Suppose even the immediate authority whom we follow, if he comes some mistakes or if he goes away from the path of bhakti, so then many times the faith of those followers, it gets shattered. And then sometimes they even go to the extent of leaving the process, or they start questioning that, oh, so many years we followed him, and now he is like, oh, it is like you have been cheated. Like, what will happen to all our services? Will be useless or something like that? People get some doubts actually. So we are discussing. I said like sometimes we see there are many bank scams happen. Like recently, some SBI scam was there, and then ICICI Bank scam. Many of these scams are 2,000 crore, 3,000 crore, 5,000 crore. But especially in the government authorized banks, even though the scams had taken place 3,000, 4,000 crores, but if the common people had put faith in that bank and deposited that amount, even though that scam had taken place, the person who is in charge of in the different position, he has cheated, but still the government gives security for the common people's money. Government gives security for the common people's money, and they do something so that the common people, they don't lose their deposit or this thing. So similarly, suppose even in the bona fide Guru Parampara, suppose we put faith in some authority and then he commits some blunders or he goes away or something. That doesn't mean that the followers' devotional service all useless. Now, because he has actually accepted that system of that parampara, Yeah, because he had put faith in that system of that parampara, so the Lord will actually reciprocate and protect that person's bhakti, or he will reward. His devotional service will not be counted as something useless or something. Just like in ordinary government, even if the top people had some in charges had done some scams, the common people who had put faith in that bank and invested that money, their money is protected by the government, and whatever appropriate returns are given by the government. So here, so the Lord can appear in any family. Sometimes he appears as the fish or a boar incarnation, etc. And yeah, another point here, Prabhupada comments that Lord Ananta, who has unlimited mouths, cannot reach the end of his glorification of the Lord, although Ananta has been describing the Lord since time immemorial. So what to speak of the Devatas like Brahma, Shiva and others. That is why when Ananta, Brahma told Ananta that you have to lift the Brahmanda. So Ananta asked that how long I should lift this Brahmanda? Because in due course of time, when you keep holding something, that becomes a burden for somebody. So Brahma told that, okay, you start glorifying Lord Vishnu, and when that comes to an end, at that time you can put down the Brahmanda. So it was a very intelligent way of telling Brahma, because instead of directly telling that you have to keep holding for the rest of eternity, he said you keep glorifying, you start glorifying the Lord when it comes to an end. So, and another thing, so he knows that it will never come to an end. And also another way why he told was that, because when you keep holding something, it starts paining, it becomes a great burden for somebody. But Brahmaji knew that if Ananta becomes absorbed in glorifying the Lord, then he will not feel that weight of the burden. That is why the Bhagavatam 5th canto describes glories of Lord Ananta. The different Brahmandas are felt, Lord Ananta feels the Brahmandas like to be like the bag of mustard seeds when he was holding them, because he is absorbed in glorifying the Lord. So similarly, like any responsibility is like holding a burden. Could be family responsibility or in some temple responsibility. So as time progresses, sometimes those responsibilities cause some heavy burden, lot of anxiety. So therefore, if we are not regularly in touch with hearing and chanting and glorifying the Lord, then those responsibilities sometimes can become a big burden. But when we are discussing glorifying the Lord, hearing the Lord, then you will not feel that weight of the responsibility. So and of course, Prabhupada says that it is not that we should stop our glorification, because even Brahma cannot glorify the Lord adequately. Rather, as Prahlad Maharaj says that Tasmadaham Vigata Viklava Ishwarasya. But Prahlad Maharaj says that I will glorify you according to my capacity. So everyone should glorify according to one's capacity. So one should, just like a bird flies according to its capacity in the sky. Next verse. Atapyudara Shravasaprutor Hare Kalavatarasya Katamrutadruta Yathopadesham Munibi Prachodita Shlagyani Karmani Vayam Vitanmahi.
Mahe. Although we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless have a transcendental taste for glorifying your activities. We shall try to glorify you according to the instructions received from the authoritative sages and scholars. Whatever we speak, however, is always inadequate and very insignificant, dear King, because you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All your activities are liberal and ever laudable.
So they are saying that actually Katamrita Adrita. Adrita means what? Adrita means actually eager. We are eager to taste your Katamrita. We are eager to taste your actually glories. We are eager to Kata Amrita. We are eager for the sweetness of your topics. And Yata Upadesham Munibi Prachodita. Being encouraged by the sages, according to the sages' guidance, Shlagyani Karmani Vayam Vitanmahi. Vitanmahi means we shall try to expand or we shall try to glorify. We will now describe as instructed the praiseworthy pastimes, Shlagyani Karmani, of the Udara Shravasa, of the most famous Pruthu, who is a Hare Kala, who is the portion of the Lord. Hare Kala Avatarasya Katamrita Adrita. So here, this purport is also a very beautiful purport that however expert one may be, one can never describe the glories of the Lord adequately. Nonetheless, those engaged in glorifying the activities of the Lord should try to do so as far as possible. The preacher's duty is to study the Bhagavad Gita as it is understood by the disciple succession and explained by the great sages and learned devotees. And devotional service is the real method, for by devotional service one can satisfy the Supreme Lord with just a few words. Without devotional service, volumes of books cannot satisfy the Lord. Even though the preachers of Krishna consciousness movement may be unable to describe the glories of the Lord, they can nonetheless go everywhere and request the people to chant Hare Krishna. Once Parashara Bhatta, when he came to take darshan of Ranganath, so Ranganath asked Parashar Bhatta to glorify him. So Parashar Bhatta told that, please give me 1,000 mouths with the capacity of Lord Ananta. Then Ranganath was surprised by such a request, and then he awarded him 1,000 mouths, the capacity of Lord Ananta. Then after getting that, Parashar Bhatta said that it is not possible to glorify you. He didn't even begin. Without even beginning, he said, it is not possible to glorify you. Then the Lord said that I gave you such a big facility of 1,000 mouths, the eloquent capacity of Ananta. After that, you are saying that it's not possible to glorify me. If it is not possible to glorify me, why did you ask for such a thing? He said, actually, I know in the beginning that even if I get 1,000 mouths with the eloquent capacity like Lord Ananta, it would not be possible to glorify you. I knew that right in the beginning. But still I asked for it, and then I made this statement, because the reason is that when I say that it is not possible to glorify you and your glories are unlimited, after having obtained 1,000 mouths of Lord Ananta, then people would take my words seriously, that your glories are unlimited. If I had made that same statement without having the 1,000 mouths of Lord Ananta, then people would not have taken my statement seriously. They would have thought that I think he's not learned. Maybe he didn't study properly, or he doesn't know Sanskrit. Therefore, he is not able to glorify. So people would not take my word seriously. But he's just covering it up by saying that Lord's glories are unlimited. Instead of saying that how he is having shortcomings. They would not take my word seriously. But in order to declare, in order for the people to take my word seriously, that your glories are unlimited, therefore I asked for 1,000 mouths of Lord Ananta, and then I mentioned that your glories are unlimited, therefore it is not possible to describe. But here, of course, Prabhupada says a beautiful point that even the preachers, if they are unable to describe the glories of the Lord, just ask people to chant Hare Krishna. Next verse. Yesha dharma brutam sreshto lokam dharmenu vartayan gopta cha dharma setunam shasta tat paripantinam.
This king, Maharaj Pruthu, is the best amongst those who are following religious principles. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and give those principles all protection. He will also be a great chastiser to the irreligious and atheistic.
So you see, Pruthu Maharaj is the Dharma Brutam Sreshto, the best upholder of Dharma, and Goptacha Dharma Setunam, protector of the principles of Dharma, Shasta Tat Paripantinam, the punisher of the opposers of Dharma, Lokam Dharme Anuvartayan, engages the world in Dharma. So, if we see the number of names of Krishna in relation to the word Dharma, there are so many names, especially in the Vishnu Sahasranam it comes. Dharmadyaksha, Dharma, Dharma Viduttama, Dharma Gup, Dharma Krita, Dharmi, Sarva Dharma Parakrama, Satya Dharma Parakrama, Satya Dharma Parayana, Dharma Yupa. Like many other names are there. So there are many names of Krishna in relation to the word Bhakti or Sadhu, Bhakta Vatsala, Sadhu Priya. Like there are many names in relation to the word Bhakta or Bhakti are there. And many names of Krishna in relation with his devotees, Yashodanandan, Nandanandan. And there are also many names of Krishna in relation to the word Dharma. So, see, Pruthu Maharaj, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sandhu, also later we'll see in his prayers. Pruthu Maharaj, his deep devotion is described, that Pruthu Maharaj is saying that I want millions of years so that I don't want to miss out on any of the topics of Krishna Katha which are going on. And Bhakti Rasamrita Rupa Goswami says that Pruthu Maharaj perfected his devotion by deity worship. So we can see on exam, and here we see Pruthu Maharaj in this verse, how he was devoted to Dharma. So therefore, both these aspects are there, how his deep attachment to the process of bhakti and Pruthu Maharaj's character in following the principles of Varnashram Dharma and making people follow leading the people in the process of Varnashram Dharma and protecting the Varnashram Dharma, both can be seen. That is why there is a verse in Mahabharata, check the exact reference, where Krishna says that I love my devotees, but I love my devotees, those devotees who follow the Varnashram Dharma properly, I love them even more. That he says. So here Pruthu Maharaj, this quality is highlighted here. So the duty of the king is described very nicely in this verse. He has to ensure that people follow a religious life, that is the Varnashram Dharma, and he should also be strict in chastising the atheists. Shasta tat paripantinam. And so the roads exact taxes from the citizens for their own sense enjoyment. And in the future, the people will be so much harassed that according to Bhagavatam, they will flee from their homes and country and take shelter in the forests. However, in Kali Yuga, the democratic government can be captured by the Krishna conscious people. If this can be done, the general populace can be made very happy. So he is telling that if it's possible, devotee should capture the democratic government. So in the sense he is saying, it's not that the devotee means it's not one place. He says that it's not that he only does bhajan. Devotee can, he gives the example of Arjuna and Hanuman. Arjuna and Hanuman, they fought and conquered over the people. So similarly, devotee can be in any field, even in the political field, he can be there and help people follow dharma and distribute Krishna consciousness. Okay, next verse. So now the next from the verse number 6. Next verse. Yesha vai loka palanam bibartyekastanu tanuhu kale kale yata bhagam lokayorubayorhitam.
This king alone, in his own body, will be able in due course of time to maintain all living entities and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods to perform various departmental activities. Thus, he will maintain the upper planetary system by inducing the populace to perform Vedic sacrifices. In due course of time, he will also maintain this earthly planet by discharging proper rainfall.
So for their prosperity, he alone maintains the bodies of the devatas within his own form. Yeshavai lokapalanam bibarti ekas tanau tanuhu, for the benefit of this world and the heavenly abode at all times. So this verse says that he will maintain even the bodies of the devatas at all times for the benefit of Swarga. By how? By ensuring that the people are performing sacrifice. Therefore, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about sacrifice. Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhava. Yajnat bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samadbhava. So King Pruthu alone would induce all the citizens to engage in such sacrificial activities so that there would not be scarcity or distress. In Kali Yuga, however, in the so-called secular state, the executive branch of government is in charge of so-called kings and presidents who are all fools and rascals. So such rascals simply make various plans which always fail and the people subsequently suffer disturbances. Therefore, the Shastras advise the holy name. Now, from the next 8 verses, verse number 6 to 13, it describes, it's an elaboration of the 5th verse, how Pruthu maintains the sun and other various deities of the devatas. That is explained in next 8 verses. Yes, sir. That means, if possible, devotees should take up the important positions in that, even in the government. Listen, democratic government, he's telling that if the devotees become the governmental heads, and they can actually ensure, they can do greater good for the greater society. To capture, because it's a over ambitious statement, but what is indicating is that it's not that devotees means they cannot participate in these the government or some position. Some devotees have the capacity to take up the leadership role, IPS, IAS, or something. One should try to do that so that one can engage that in the service of Krishna. So verse number 6 is about the sun god. Vasukala upadatte kale chayam vimunchati samas sarveshu bhuteshu pratapan surya vadvibhuhu.
This King Pruthu will be as powerful as the sun god. And just as the sun god equally distributes his sunshine to everyone, King Pruthu will distribute his mercy equally. Similarly, just as the sun god evaporates water for eight months and during the rainy season return it profusely, the king will also exact taxes from the citizens and return these monies in times of need.
So Pruthu Maharaj will be shining like the sun. Sun like evaporates water and then gives the water at the appropriate time. Similarly, Pruthu will levy taxes and then they release the funds at the appropriate time where there is a need, for which project it is required. So that is the point here in comparing to the sun. And next is in comparing to the earth. Titikshat akramam vainya upari akramatam api bhutanam karuna shashvad artanam kshiti vrittiman.
This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens. Even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself.
So, earth is the symbol of tolerance. Like the earth, he tolerates when opposing parties disrespect him. And is always merciful to the suffering people. Earth also tolerates so many people like digging well or like putting mine into the, they dug into the earth to make a mine to get petroleum. The earth has that quality. So also tolerance in the sense that a king treats the citizens like the children. Pitruvat praja. So sometimes the citizens mistreat the king would tolerate those citizens. In other words, it is the duty of the king to look after the comforts of the citizens, even at the cost of his own personal convenience. Even at the cost of his own. This is not the case, however, in Kali Yuga. For in Kali Yuga, the kings and the heads of the state enjoy life at the cost of the taxes exacted from the citizens. So that's the typical thing in Kali Yuga. Like the politicians, there are so many people. They just they make the political role as the money-making role. They don't see that as a role to serve the people. They see it as a money-making role. In fact, there are political parties. They say like, okay, if you want to contest as a MLA or MP, then you have to give this many crores. Then we will give the MLA or MP seat. So if the system is like that, so can we expect that person who gets elected to actually serve. He'll be forced to think that, okay, I invested this much amount, so I have to ensure that at least double that or triple that is actually I can get back in the next 5 years. So that is why systems are even like in the education also, for example, in education, when high fee is charged, there are like medical seats and different 20 lakh, 30 lakh, or 40 lakh. When the high fee is charged, then they are forced to think, okay, when I become a doctor, how much I can, I have to minimum get back that amount which I invested for education. For the systems, actually, the systems are corrupt system that make people act like that. So then next verse. So next verse is about how Pruthu Maharaj is compared to Indra. Deve varshatya saudeva naradeva vapurharihi krichra prana prajakyesha rakshishyat anjasendravat.
When there is no rainfall and the citizens are in great danger due to the scarcity of water, this royal personality of Godhead will be able to supply rains exactly like the heavenly king Indra. Thus, he will be very easily be able to protect the citizens from drought.
So, Pruthu Maharaj will protect the suffering citizens easily by supplying rain, just like Indra. So it is indicated that Pruthu would arrange for the distribution of the rainfall personally, even if Indra failed to discharge his duty properly. Sometimes the Indra would become angry at the inhabitants of earth if they did not offer sacrifices to appease him. So Pruthu, being an incarnation of the Lord, did not depend on the mercy of Indra. It is foretold herein that if there would be a scarcity of rain, Pruthu would manage to counteract the deficiency by virtue of his godly powers. So you can see, like, responsible sometimes when some particular work is not done, and then when the in charge is questioned or person is questioned, many times that person says, oh, because that person didn't do it. So generally, one tends to put the blame on others. But Pruthu Maharaj was so responsible, even if Indra failed to do something, that he would personally manage to give rainfall to the people. And then Pruthu Maharaj, by virtue of his affectionate glances and a beautiful moon-like face, which is always smiling with great affection for the citizens, will enhance everyone's peaceful life. So that means like he would also have a, although he had such a great responsibility, but he had an affectionate smile and a moon-like face, and he would treat the people very affectionately. And then he is compared to Varuna, 10th verse. 9th I summarize. Avyakta vartmaisha niguda karyo gambira veda upagupta vittaha ananta mahatmya gunaika dama Krutu pracheta iva samvritatma.
The reciters continued, no one will be able to understand the policies the king will follow. His activities will also be very confidential, and it will not be possible for anyone to know how he will make every activity successful. His treasury will always remain unknown to everyone. He will be the reservoir of unlimited glories and good qualities, and his position will be maintained and covered just as Varuna, the deity of the seas, is covered all around by water.
So here they're saying that avyakta vartmaisha niguda karyo. So his paths of entry and exit are unknown. Essentially, in the sense how he would keep his plans very secret. Avyakta Vartma Isha Niguda Karyo, his paths of entry and exit are unknown. The results of his actions are not known before they manifest. Niguda Karyo. Niguda Karyo. And Gambhira Veda, his intentions and action are unclear. Upagupta Vitta, his wealth and knowledge are very secret. And he has the greatness, qualities and superior strength of Vishnu. Ananta Mahatmya Guna Eka Dama. And Pruthu Pracheta, Pracheta refers to Varuna. Pruthu, like Varuna, covers his qualities. He was Samvritatma. So one of the important quality or important principle which a leader should follow is that when he is undertaking a particular plan, he should not be known to the other competitors or common people. It should be known only after it is completed. In the Vidura Niti, Vidura is actually telling, he gives different verses and different set of topics. The first around 15 verses are about 10 or 15 verses are about who is a Pandita. Definition of a Pandita. And various definitions he gives. So one definition he gives is Yasya Krityam na jananti mantram va mantritam pare kritam evasya jananti savai pandita uchyate. So this verse is exactly related to the Bhagavatam verse. So one can see the various the scriptures are all interrelated actually. So this Mahabharata verse about the Pandita, we can see in relation to this quality of Pruthu Maharaj. So what is the meaning of this verse about the Pandita? Yasya Krityam na jananti. One whose projects and proposed recommendations remain concealed from the competitors. And Kritam eva asya jananti. And the projects become known only after they have been accomplished. Such a person is considered as a Pandita. So especially the current times, because of social media conditions of people to give update quite often. Like when many times a person starts some work in some particular field. Suppose he does X amount of work, but he will put 5x amount of effort to advertise that X amount of work. And then the people who see those advertisements, they feel as if this person has done 10x amount of work. So in Kali Yuga is about creating the right brands actually. Although we have done less amount of work, people are more interested in advertising that work. Even with just started the work, they want to advertise it. But rather, better we do substantial amount of work in the particular field and let the work advertise for ourselves. Instead of we having to put separate effort to advertise, let us do substantial quality work, even if it takes a many amount of time. And just by the quality of that work, let the work actually advertise, let it create naturally, actually let it spread. So therefore here Pruthu Maharaj, especially for a leader and a king, it is very important that he doesn't reveal his plans. The results of his actions are not known before they manifest. So if we read There was one prime minister who was there for a short time in India, I.K. Gujral. He was from a very leftist background, but he made many mistakes. The RA, the Research and Analysis Wing, they had been working in Pakistan for many years, and they were like instrumental in finding out the plans of the Pakistan terrorists. But this I.K. Gujral, I heard from somebody that one of the Pakistan big leader came, and that main leader, he told him about some of the plans of India. What a blunder actually he committed. And then because of that, and they immediately became alert, and then they came to know that Ra is there in Pakistan. And then, so Ra had been working in Pakistan for many years, but he actually brought back all the Ra back to India, or he told some of the secrets to them. So the leader has to be very grave. His intentions in action are unclear. His wealth and knowledge are also very secret. So Prabhupada elaborates here that Varuna is the predominating deity of the seas and oceans. So from outward appearance, the ocean appears to be devoid of life. But actually within the ocean, there are so many varieties of fishes are there. Like, you know that how many species of aquatics are there? Several lakhs, I think. Several lakhs. 9 lakhs. Jalaja Navalakshani. So, but outwardly you see only water, but inward there are so many varieties of life further. So similarly, the king, that is the quality of Varuna. So similarly, the king should also have that quality. No one can understand what is going on beneath the sea. No one could understand what policy Pruthu was following to make everything successful. So King Pruthu's path of diplomacy was very grave. Even we can see to some extent the Modi's policy of demonetization. Like nobody had any clue actually. Suddenly one fine day he came, and then there was an announcement night 8 o'clock or something, and then he said these notes are no more in value. So therefore the policies have to be kept a secret. To maintain the secrecy, it requires a high level of a good quality leadership is required. So Pruthu's path of diplomacy was very grave. His success was made possible because he was a reservoir of unlimited glorified activities. And also, no one would know the extent of the riches Pruthu would confidentially keep. Again, we see in the modern times, people are, the rich people, they want to show off the rich. They want to spend extravagantly and show off how rich we are. They are extravagant in spending. One purport in 8th canto Prabhupada says that one of the cause of misery is the extravagant lifestyle. So in Kali Yuga, the king or government has no well-protected treasury, and the only means of circulation is the currency notes made of paper. Therefore, in times of distress, the government artificially inflates the currency by simply printing papers. So keeping one's money very secretly is an old practice, where we find this practice present even during the reign of Maharaj Pruthu. So this point of keeping the plans a secret, recently somebody was sharing with me. So when the government decided to do that, revoke the Article 370, bring back Kashmir as a part of India. So it requires certain majority in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. They had difficulty in getting majority in, I think, Rajya Sabha or something. So what they did, they had made plans different before itself. So many times some particular panel would be, subcommittee would be formed for different areas or different work. And they had made some subcommittee, and subcommittee usually would have ruling party members and opposition party. And some of the subcommittees were formed only with the opposition members. And they were also a little surprised, but they didn't know. And then as part of the work of the subcommittee, and those subcommittee members were told to go to some foreign country to do some research or to find out certain things. And usually these MPs, MLAs, they become excited when they get an opportunity for foreign trip actually. And so they had arranged that foreign trip during that 370 article. And these people, they had gone the foreign trip. And they also chose such a time that when they came to know that, oh, this article 370 is going to be passed, there was no flight back to India on that day from there. So they had made such a plan, and then they said, oh, we have come to foreign. They were happy. And then they said, oh, why we only opposite members are there? And then they realized that this article 370 is going to be passed, but then they couldn't come in time to vote it, vote against it. So that person was saying that how it is they had made a master plan, like thinking all the pros and cons, how many people can vote against it, how to actually tackle that. So therefore, this is an important quality of a leader that comes here actually. So the main point is that everyone should be trained in the system of Varnashram Dharma, so that the money is spent only for good causes and nothing else. So we'll just take a break and then continue. Start.
Hare Krishna. Guruji, this is the description is going on that how Pruthu Maharaj was misbehaving. The king, how as a leader he can use diplomacy. है ना? Now, when it comes to devotional service, devotional life, that how Prabhupada mentions that how a devotee should be straightforward. He should be ready to tell the secrets even to an enemy. And that somewhere Prabhupada writes. So now, to what extent this diplomacy can be used in service of Krishna, and how the devotee not get complicated or implicated by this diplomacy? Because as we understand that in brahmachari life, a devotee has to be straightforward also, and as the leadership, the diplomacy is required also. So how to see that, and what factors he can take into consideration, to what extent it can be used?
Yeah, diplomacy is opposite to simplicity. Diplomacy is one of the weed which Mahaprabhu mentions. Kutitanti, Nishiddachar. Kutinati is he says that we should be careful of the weeds which grow along with the Bhakti Lata creeper. One of the weeds is diplomacy. But at the same time, the Chaitanya Charitamrita one purport, when Ramananda Rai would try to Ramananda Rai, Sarvam Bhattacharya, when they would try to convince Mahaprabhu to give his association to Pruthu Maharaj, Prabhupada says that sometimes the diplomacy can be utilized in the service of the Lord. In order to bring a devotee close to Krishna. So another purport, third canto, Kapila Dev's teachings to Devahuti, is explained that in the material world, you cannot avoid being diplomatic, especially when you are dealing with the common materialistic society, or even within a family. Sometimes the different family members they say that, oh, come for this, do that. We have to externally say yes, yes. But internally, one should have one's own plans. So one cannot avoid being diplomatic in the material world. But within the community of devotees, we have to be simple. We cannot avoid. We should not be diplomatic. And the diplomacy has to be, if at all one is diplomatic, it is for the bringing another devotee close to Krishna, or for unity's sake, and not for the sake of any, it should not cause any disunity, or generally diplomacy, when it is found out, it will create distrust. So therefore, within the community of devotees, it should be avoided, or it should be used only for the purpose of bringing a devotee close to Krishna. So any quality, that quality, like for example, qualities like humility, tolerance, non-diplomatic, they have to be cultivated. At the same time, we have to understand that these qualities are not the goal. They are the tools, because some certain instances in the life, these one may have to be, one should not show tolerance. Certain instances in the life, one has to be diplomatic. So the qualities are not the goal, they are simply the tool. Yeah, in general, these qualities are helpful, but sometimes the opposite of these qualities have to be practiced in that particular situation for the service of the Lord, for that, whatever it demands. So Krishna also, but generally we find, for example, Mahatma Gandhi, he practiced ahimsa, but he practiced ahimsa as a goal, not as a tool. Because he practiced ahimsa as a goal, when so much of violence was taking place during the partition, he still told the people to practice ahimsa. That propagation of ahimsa, that led to so much of violence. But Krishna did not practice any of these qualities as a goal, but only as a tool. Huh. So similarly, yeah, we have to cultivate these qualities, which are generally, Krishna talks about different qualities in the Gita. But certain instances, like diplomacy may also be required. Violence will also be required. Certain instances, we should not be tolerant. Huh. So therefore, every quality, when it is connected with dharma, then it gives auspicious result. When it is disconnected from dharma, it can give opposite result. Okay, we'll go a little fast. So 11th verse, we'll recite together. Durasado durvishaha asannopi viduravat naivabi bhavitum shakyo venaranyuttito nalaha.
King Prithu was born of the dead body of King Vena, as the fire is produced from Arani wood. Thus, King Prithu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies. For although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prithu.
So you see, for a Kshatriya, it is very important that he is highly equipped in his military skills. Like for example, the Yaksha Prashna, Yaksha is asking, what is the divine nature of the Brahmanas? Yudhishthira Maharaj says that knowledge of the Shastra, knowledge of the Vedas, a study of the Shastras is their divine nature. And he asked the same question about the Kshatriyas. What is the divine nature of the Kshatriyas? And Yudhishthira Maharaj says that expert in military science or arrows and missiles, practice of the arrows, practice in the use of the weapons, arrows and missiles, that constitutes their divine nature, Devatvam. So, just like Prabhupada says that the Ajamil section, when the preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, when they distribute books, when they meet the people, when they ask certain questions, they should be ready to answer their questions. Otherwise, they would become embarrassed. Therefore, the devotee should study their books, study the books written. And same principle for a Kshatriyas, in terms of Kshatriya should be trained in the weapons, he should be having the weapons. It's not that when the attack happens, that time he starts searching for the weapons, or he starts the practice of the weapons or something. Then when some people ask the question, that time we start, okay, let me start reading the Gita and answer. No, one should be ready with them. So therefore, for a Kshatriya, it is very important that they are actually, their Devatva is, for every person, the field is, for a Vaishya, their field is, they should be, suppose somebody in a particular field of business, he should be thorough with, he should be daily in touch with that business. Somebody is investing in stocks or whatever different field, whichever field, they should be in touch with that field regularly. So here, Durasado Durvishaha, his enemies cannot approach, and if they do, they cannot tolerate his strength. Asannopi Viduravat. So that is why, similarly, sometimes the people, they dare to, even here it's talking about Kshatriya, sometimes some people, they dare to argue with certain people also, because they know that if I ask question to him, he will come up with a different quotes. So better not approach him only, actually. So similarly, people knew these enemies, if we approach Pruthu, he will have everything ready and we will be pulverized. So enemies were not able to approach him only. So though present, he seems to be far away. He cannot be conquered. He is like the fire arising from the arani wood of Vena. Next verse. Antar Bahishya Bhutanam Pashyan Karmani Charanai Udasina Ivadyaksho Vayur Atmeva Dehina. So seeing all the actions of all the beings internally and externally by the spies, he will seem to be an unattached person. He is like the Sutratma pervading the universe. He is a superintendent like the Antaryami. So he'll appear to be unattached, although he would be attached to his servants and ministers. So in the sense, like he knows the leader, knows the nook and corner of everything happening, but at the same time he appears to be aloof actually. Unattached. He appears to be aloof, but actually not aloof. So he will know the minute details, but he will appear to be aloof. So he is like the Sutratma, the thread passing through the whole universe. And the superintendent like the Antaryami. And the next verse. Na dandyam dandayat yesha sutam atma dvisham api dandayat atmajam api dandyam dharmapate stitah. Can read.
Since this king will always remain on the path of piety, he will be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy. If the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him.
So this is a very important quality for a king. Especially the king should be loyal to Dharma. Any person in the leadership. So our loyalty to Dharma will be tested when somebody close to us, some relative, when that person follows adharma, at that time our loyalty to Dharma will be tested. And when somebody in our enemy's side, when he does something good, at that time also our loyalty to Dharma will be tested. Are we able to appreciate and reward that person? So that was the dilemma of Arjuna actually in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was, today morning also Maharaj beautifully explained. So Arjuna was actually, he couldn't fight just by seeing Bhishma and Drona. But like more than your affection to the individual person, the loyalty to Dharma for the sake of the greater welfare of the entire world, that becomes more important. So Krishna spoke the Gita to convince Arjuna to fight, to shoot arrows at his teacher and his grandfather, but while maintaining the same respect towards them. While maintaining the respect towards them. So in one sense, as we mentioned previously also, so Vaishnava aparadh can be committed with our mind, words, or the body. The highest Vaishnava aparadh is when we commit with our body. Bhrigu Muni committed the highest aparadh to Narayan by kicking at him. But in one sense, Arjuna, from one point of view, he committed the highest Vaishnava aparadh, one may see externally, because he pierced every inch of the body of Bhishma. But is it mentioned anywhere that he committed Vaishnava aparadh? Because aparadh, just like bhakti, is an activity which is intended to please Krishna, not that which incidentally pleases Krishna. Aparadh is an activity which is intended to displease Krishna or the devotees, not that which incidentally displeases Krishna or the devotees. So Arjuna shot arrows at Bhishma, but it was he never had the intention to displease or attack, to put down Bhishma like that. So Arjuna shot arrows at Bhishma as part of his dharmic duty, but at the same time in his heart he maintained the utmost reverence towards Bhishma. Otherwise, if you don't have the reverence towards a person, you would not hear from that person for hours together. If you don't have the reverence, even if that person is giving some class or something, in our mind, within our mind, simultaneously some dialogue will be going on. I know this person, he's speaking this lofty thing, but I know what he is actually. Or in our mind, something else will be going on. But after the battle of Kurukshetra, all the Pandavas heard from Bhishma for hours together. But during the battle, Arjuna shot arrows at Bhishma. So therefore, there is Bhakti Sadachar and Dharma Sadachar. Bhakti Sadachar means following Vaishnava etiquette, how respecting the Vaishnavas, different aspects of Bhakti. Dharma Sadachar is that when you see that somebody is obstructing the establishment of Dharma, or somebody is seeing in front of his eyes adharma is taking place, but he is still not doing anything, and he is supporting the people who are doing adharma, then one has to attack that person, one has to oppose that person. That is part of Dharma Sadachar. Bhakti Sadachar is that when a person is a bhakta, we should respect him. We should give utmost respect within our heart, definitely. So just like Krishna said, Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha, remember me and fight. Practice bhakti and also perform your Kshatriya duty of fighting. So similarly, we have to follow Bhakti Sadachar as well as Dharma Sadachar. So Arjuna's Dharma Sadachar was that he had to shoot arrows at Bhishma because Bhishma was a main obstacle for the establishing Dharma. But at the same time, he didn't compromise as a Bhakta, he didn't compromise in the Bhakti Sadachar, as Vaishnava Sadachar, because after the battle, they went and heard from Bhishma. So that means that is the meaning of Dharma Yuddha, that it was never against the person, it was only based on the principle. Usually when we oppose a person, then we oppose every aspect of that person. But here, Arjuna is attacking Bhishma, but it was only for the sake of Dharma. After that, they heard from Bhishma only. So therefore, this quality of situated in Dharma, he will not punish his enemy's son if he does not deserve to be punished, and he will punish even his own son if he deserves punishment. Next verse. Asya pratihatam chakram Prutur atmanas chalat vartate bhagavan arko yavat tapati goganai. So as far as the sun shines with its rays, the jurisdiction of Pruthu will remain unimpeded up to the Manasottara mountain. So just as no one can check the sunshine from spreading all over the universe, no one could check the influence and reign of King Pruthu, which could remain undisturbed as long as he lived. The conclusion is that the sun god and sunshine and sun god cannot be separated, nor could King Pruthu and his ruling strength be separated. His rule over everyone would continue without disturbance, thus the king would not be separated from his ruling power. So, in a sense, it shows how his ruling power was unimpeded up to the Manasottara mountain. In the 5th canto, Manasottara mountain is the, I think on top of that only the sun has its orbit or the top of the Manasottara mountain. Up to the far end of the Bhumandala. And then next verse, Ranjayishyati Yallokam Ayam Atma Vicheshtitai Athamum Ahu Rajanam Mano Ranjanakai Praja. Can read translation.
This king will please everyone by his practical activities, and all of his citizens will remain very satisfied. Because of this, the citizens will take great satisfactions in accepting him as their ruling king.
So here, so Pruthu Maharaj will please the world by his activities which are pleasing to the mind, Atma Vicheshtitai, and therefore the citizens will call him the king, Raja. The word Raja comes from Ranjayati. Ranjayati, he would please the citizens. Our Raja comes from the word Rajati. That means Rajati means shine, he shines. Here especially Ranjayishyati or Ranjayati, he would please the citizen. So there's another verse in the 22nd chapter, which is also we can see in relation to this verse. Gopitaya Jagat Srishte Kale Sve Sve Achyutatmakaha Manovag Vrittibhi Saumyair Gunai Samranjayan Prajaha. Always thinking of the Lord in order to protect the created universe according to time, he pleased the citizens by his attractive qualities, words, and mind. Gunai Samranjayan Prajaha. A very beautiful purport is written by Prabhupada in that verse. How as a king, as a devotee and a king, he knew what is the purpose of the Lord's creation, to give opportunity for the living entities to enjoy independently from Lord and to correct them. So Pruthu Maharaj would arrange for, used to rule the planet as a representative of the Lord. So therefore, he would give facilities to the individual living entities who want to lord it over material nature. The ruler of the planet should therefore know that all the inhabitants have come to this material world for sense enjoyment. It is therefore the duty of the ruler to satisfy them with their sense enjoyment as well as to elevate them to Krishna consciousness so that they all can ultimately return home back to Godhead. So, as a king has to, in one sense, sometimes satisfy the needs even of, there will be people in Tamoguna, Rajoguna in his kingdom, and they would be wanting to drink liquor or associate with the prostitutes. The king would have to make facilities for them, because if that is not done, and they would contaminate the common society. So sometimes a king would have to, okay, there are people who are in deep in Tamoguna, for them some facilities provided outside the city, or some place prostitute, like there are prostitutes even in Dwaraka. We read that purport in first canto, Prabhupada says that sometimes such facilities required in order that the common society is not polluted by these people in Tamoguna. So Pruthu Maharaj would satisfy the minds of all the citizens. At the same time, he would also provide facility for the satsang and people to get educated, the shastra to get elevated. Yeah, next verse. Dritavratai Satya Sando Brahmanyo Vriddha Sevakaha Sharanya Sarvabhutanam Manado Deenavatsalaha. Can read.
The king will be firmly determined and always situated in truth. He will be a lover of the Brahmanical culture and will render all service to old men and give shelter to all surrender souls. Giving respect to all, he will always be merciful to the poor and innocent.
You see, Dritavratai means, especially it refers to, he will be true to the scriptural vows. Satya Sandha means some everyday promise he makes to the, say, different people. And Brahmanya, respectful to the Brahmanas. One place it comes later, the 21st chapter. It said that Pruthu Maharaj, he ruled the entire Saptadvipa. Nobody could oppose his order. But at the same time, but he never tried to exercise his control or power over the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. So Brahmanya says devoted to the respectful to the Brahmanas and the elders, Vriddha Sevaka. There are two kinds of elders. One is elder by age, another is elder by knowledge. And another thing is Sharanya Sarva Bhutana, kind to the suffering or protector of, or especially you give shelter to the surrendered souls. So this is a very important quality of a king, especially like even in the, as I remember in the Yaksha Prashna, when it is mentioned about the Kshatriya, Yaksha is asking Yudhishthira Maharaj that what is the quality of the Kshatriyas which is similar to that of bad men? So there he says that abandonment of the afflicted is their bad quality. When the Kshatriya fails to give shelter to those who are surrendered, and that is considered to be like the very bad quality. So that is why this quality comes quite often. Like even in during the Exodus which happened, the genocide 1919 Kashmir, and some of the Kashmir Pandits were interviewed later. Like, why don't you go back to Kashmir now and settle there? The situation is somewhat peaceful. They said one thing they mentioned, one of the person, he said that what caused the greatest pain to us, or what we are greatly worried, is not about the Muslims, but about the people who are supposed to give us protection. Because in front of those, say, policemen, this was happening. And we were expecting protection from them, but they failed to give protection. So abandonment of the afflict is the bad quality of the Kshatriyas. One of the question which Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Arjuna, when Arjuna returned from Dwaraka, and Arjuna was in a morose state, Yudhishthira Maharaj asked that, is it that you failed to give protection to somebody who surrendered to you? Is that the reason for your distress? So even Lord Ram, one of the reasons why he was angry with Vali was that even when Sugriva surrendered to Vali, but still Vali tried to attack Sugriva, started chasing him. And that was the quality which, like, Lord Ram was most unhappy, therefore decided to kill Vali. So, Matru Bhaktai Parastrishu Patnyam Ardra Ivatmanaha Prajasu Pitruvat Snigda Kinkaro Brahmavadinam. Can read.
The king will respect all women as if they were his own mother, and he will treat his own wife as the other half of his body. He will be just like an affectionate father to his citizens, and he will treat himself as the most obedient servant of the devotees, who always preach the glories of the Lord.
So Matur Bhakti Parastri should treat other women as his mother, affection for his one's wife as if she were the half of his body. Ardra Ivatmana. He will have affection like a father for the citizens. Prajasu Pitruvat Snigda. And Kinkaro Brahmavadinam, servant of the followers of the Vedas. So all these verses are really very beautiful verses. They can be like, we can keep meditating on them, the qualities. So there was, I think, the leadership college, ISKCON Leadership College. I saw that every year then they were having the Bhagavatam classes during that time. They had the Bhagavatam classes on these series, on these verses. At least for few years, I saw every year they were having the, when GV, it was initially being held during the leadership GBC college. So the same verses were given every year in this chapter only, because these are the qualities which a leader is supposed to have. So education does not mean having academic degrees only. One should execute what he has learned in his personal life. These learned characteristics were verily manifest in King Pruthu. According to the Vedic etiquette, if a devotee came to a king's palace, the king would immediately offer his own seat to him. So Brahmavadinam is significant. So Brahmavadinam especially refers to the devotees of the Lord. The state should always serve the devotees of the Lord, and the ideal state should conduct itself according to the instructions of the devotee. And then in the next verse, the king will consider all the embodied living entities as dear as his own self, and he will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. And he will intimately associate with the liberated persons. I mean, like, he would be eager to associate with the sadhus or the detached people and punish the wicked. So, like, it is especially Kali Yuga is such a thing. Sometimes such third class or 10th class administration, like sometimes sadhus are killed in the, like 2 years back in that Palgar, some sadhus were killed, beaten by the people. So here it's that he will intimately associate with the detached people. So the reason is that like one devotee asked Radhanath Swami Maharaj that I have a attachment to yearning wealth. I come from Vaishya background. I have a great attachment to earning wealth. What should I do? Like, so Maharaj said he didn't tell anything about you suppress this propensity or something. What he said was that you ensure that you chant your 16 rounds before you leave for the work, and ensure that you regularly associate with the genuine sadhus. So because when you associate with them, you will realize in due course of time that oh, these people are living happily without any money, and that will have an impact on you. So here, instead of suppressing this capacity, what he said was that you follow your sadhana properly, because if for a Vaishya, it's a natural. Krishna says in the Uddhav Gita that the natural desire of a Vaishya is that he has a ever increasing desire for earning money. But he should supplement that quality with dedication to charity and being devoted to the Brahmanas, like that. Then he will not be affected by it. So here a king also should be eager to associate with the detached, and he'll be a chastising hand to all the impious people. Yeah, and the next verse. Ayam tu sakshat bhagavam stradisha kutastha atma kalayavatirna yasmin avidya rachitam nirartakam pashyanti nanatvam pratitam. No, I read through it actually. You can read 19.
This king is the master of the three worlds and is directly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is without change, and he is an incarnation of the Supreme known as Shaktavesha Avtara. Being a liberated soul and completely learned, he sees all material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience.
So the king, Sakshat Bhagavan, directly the Lord, master of the three worlds, Pradesha, Kutastha, unchanging, Antaryami has appeared as a Kalaya Avatirna, as a portion of the Lord. And in him, the sages see that the appearance of variety created by ignorance is meaningless. Yasmin avidya rachitam nirartakam. So Prabhupada translates that being a liberated soul and completely learned, he sees all the material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience. So in the Lord, sages present see the variety made of ignorance to be meaningless. So this verse is like the summary of all the qualities of Pruthu Maharaj, because he is mentioned as Sakshat Bhagavan, or the incarnation of the Lord. And Maharaj Pruthu could not be equaled in his excellent qualities. Being an incarnation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is fully equipped with the 6 kinds of opulences. Kutastha means without change. So there are 2 kinds of living entities, Nitya Mukta and Nitya Baddha. So one who does not forget his position is a Nitya Mukta. And Nitya Mukta living entity represents the super soul as its expansion. And Nitya Baddha is eternally conditioned. He sees the material varieties as being actually different from one another. Means like Nitya Baddha gets attracted by the material varieties. In this connection, we should remember that the embodiment of the conditioned soul is considered to be like a dress. One may dress in different ways, but a really learned man does not take the dresses into consideration. But the Nitya Baddha, he is attracted by the dresses. He differentiates based on the external dresses instead of seeing the spirit soul within. And so liberated man does not look upon the dresses that externally cover the living entity. Being a Shaktiavesh Avatara empowered by the Supreme Lord, Pruthu Maharaj did not change his spiritual position. Consequently, there was no possibility of his viewing the material world as a reality. I'll just quickly cover the remaining verses. You can just read the next verse.
The king, being uniquely powerful and heroic, will have no competitor. He will travel around the globe on his victorious chariot, holding his invincible bow in his hand and appearing exactly like the sun, which rotates in its own orbit from the south.
So the most heroic protector, Goptaika Viro, the king of all the kings, Naradeva Natha, situated on his victory chariot with bow in hand, will circumambulate the whole earth clockwise from the sunrise mountain like the sun. So, of course, Prabhupada says that sun is not fixed but is rotating in its orbit. Sun is rotating in its orbit, which is set with the Supreme Personality of God. So he writes that. And then the 5th canto, of course, already describes that. Brahma Samhita also says that Yasyangyaya Brahmati Samvritakala Chakro. Sun is moving in its orbit. The Himalaya mountains from which the sunrise is first seen are called Udayachala or Udayadri. So Pruthu Maharaj's reign over the world would cover even the Himalaya mountains and extend to the borders of all the oceans. So the qualified king, be he Pruthu or any other king who rules over the state as an ideal king, should be understood to be God in human form. So according to Vedic culture, the king is honored as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he represents Narayan, who also gives protection to the citizens. He is therefore Natha, or the proprietor. Even Sanatana Goswami gave respect to the Nawab Hussain Shah as Naradeva, although the Nawab was Mohammedan. The king or governmental head must therefore be so competent to rule over the state that the citizens will worship him as God in human form. So this is the purport of the word Naradeva Natha. So when the king travels all over the world, other kings as well as the demigods will offer him all kinds of presentations. And their queens will consider him the original king who carries in his hands the emblems of club and disc and will sing of his fame, for he will be as reputable as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this verse actually shows the reputation of Pruthu Maharaj. So he is also called as Adi Raja in this verse. So Swayambhu Manu is also called as Adi Raja in one place, and the Pruthu Maharaj is also called as Adi Raja. So people do not know that original king Narayan is actually the protector of the living entities. Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. And the king's duty as a representative, he should supervise the distribution of wealth for the maintenance of the living entities. So Pruthu Maharaj was actually carrying with him the reputation of the Supreme Lord. Now the 22 to 24th verse describe how the different wives of the Devatas glorified Pruthu. 3 verses describe that. We'll recite together. As ayam mahim gam duduhedi raja prajapatir vrittikara prajanam yo leela yadrin swasharasa kotya bindan samam gam akarodyatendraha. Can read 22.
This king, this protector of the citizens, is an extraordinary king and is equal to the Prajapati demigods. For the living facility of all citizens, he will milk the earth, which is like a cow. Not only that, but he will level the surface of the earth with the pointed ends of his bow, breaking all the hills exactly as King Indra, the heavenly king, breaks mountains with his powerful thunderbolt.
So just as Indra easily broke the mountains with the tip of his bow and leveled the earth, Pruthu Maharaj, the master of the citizens, the provider of maintenance, milked the earth as a cow. So 22 to 25 are the glorification done by the different wives of the Devatas. Vispurjayan ajagavam danusvayam yada charatshmam avisahyam ajau tada nililyur dishi dishya santo Langulamudyamya yata mrugendraha.
When the lion travels in the forest with its tail turned upward, all menial animals hide themselves. Similarly, when King Prathu will travel over his kingdom and vibrate the string of his bow, which is made of the horns of goats and bulls, and is irresistible in battle, all demonic rogues and thieves will hide themselves in all directions.
So this shows that just by the fanging his irresistible bow, the sinful fled away in all the directions. The Kshatriyas killed. So here Prabhupada says that unless the rogues and thieves in a state are afraid of the executive head, there cannot be peace or prosperity. Therefore, it is most regrettable that a woman becomes the executive head instead of a lion-like king. In such a situation, the people are considered very unfortunate. And then, so therefore, it is very important that the rogues and thieves should be afraid of the king. And then they also mentioned how Prithu would perform Ashwamedha sacrifices and Indra would steal the horse meant for the Ashwamedha sacrifice. And then they also foretold how this king would meet Sanat Kumara and he would worship Sanat Kumara with a devotion, and Pruthu Maharaj would attain spotless knowledge by which the yogis know the Supreme Brahman. Although Pruthu was an incarnation, he nonetheless taught the people in his kingdom to take instructions from a guru who represents the parampara. Thus, one can become fortunate and enjoy a blissful life even within this material world. In this verse, Vidanti is sometimes taken to mean understanding. Thus, when a person understands Brahman, he enjoys a blissful life. So, in this way, when the chivalrous activities of King Prithu come to be known to the people in general, King Prithu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities. Last verse. Disho vijitya pratiruddha chakra स्वतेजसोत्पातितलोकशल्यः सुरासुरेन्द्रैरुपगीयमाण महानुभावो भवितापतिर्भुवः.
No one will be able to disobey the orders of Pruthu Maharaj. After conquering the world, he will completely eradicate the threefold miseries of the citizens. Then he will be recognized all over the world. At that time, both the Suras and Asuras will undoubtedly glorify his magnanimous activities.
So, conquering the directions, Disho Vijitya Apratiruddha Chakra Swatejasot Padita Lokashalya, having unchecked power and uprooting the miseries of the people by his prowess, and Sura Asurendra, glorified by the Devatas and the demons, he will become a Mahanubhavo Bhavita Patirbhuva, a leader of the great authority. Here again, Prabhupada talks about the importance of Varnashram. Just as there are many united states in the various parts of the world, in the olden days, the entire world was ruled by many states. As soon as there were some discrepancies in the maintenance of the Varnashram, the emperor would immediately take charge of the small states. So that means that Varnashram was given importance. Suppose there is some discrepancy in Varnashram, you take the small states. The word Utpatita Lokashalya indicates that Maharaj Pruthu completely uprooted all the miseries of his citizens. The word Shalya means piercing thorns. There are many kinds of miserable thorns that pierce the citizens of a state, but all competent rulers uprooted all the miserable conditions of the citizens. So during the reign of Yudhishthir, there did not even exist a severe cold or scorching heat, nor did the citizens suffer from any kind of mental anxiety. You remember the verses in first canto. So persons or nations anxious to spread their influence all over the world should consider this point. If one is able to eradicate completely the threefold miseries of the citizens, then he should aspire to rule the world. So we see that like there are people who are eager to rule and increase their power, increase their influence. But here, generally people want greater facility, greater power, but they are not conscious of the responsibility. Here, Prabhupada is reminding that if you are not able to remove the miseries of the people, if you are not able to remove the mental anxieties of the people, then one should not aspire to rule the world. So therefore, this is a important verse. One is able to completely eradicate the threefold miseries. Just like in regards to Brahmanas, Prabhupada says that Brahmana should not only eat on behalf of the Lord, but they should also remove the ignorance of the people and preach on behalf of the Lord. The Kshatriya should not simply aspire to increase his influence by ruling, but he should also try to remove the miseries of the people, including even the mental anxieties, the threefold miseries. It's like Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidaivika. So with this we completed 4 chapters. So next week we'll complete the remaining 3 chapters, 17, 18, 19. So anybody has any questions?
They cannot be how can someone else remove someone's prarabdha karma? So, I
No.
mean, how do we understand these words?
See, one is the viewpoint from as an individual viewpoint is one thing. Another is this is the instruction from the point of view of a responsible head, from a leader. From an individual's point of view, we have to understand these miseries are inevitable. From the point of view of a head of the state, a responsible head, he should try to create a stable situation. In the sense, removing the miseries means he cannot stop the voltage of the people, but there are certain artificial miseries created by the because of not following the system created by God, and they should be eradicated. Yeah, the world will be a place where there will be miseries will be there, but some miseries are naturally as part of the creation, but there are other miseries because of not living according to the system of Krishna. We create more miseries. So Krishna has created the world like a prison cell, but because of we not following the system of Krishna, we convert the prison cell into a concentration camp. So a king should, when the king sees that the world is like a concentration camp, he should try to bring back the concentration camp back to the prison cell. Prison cell means prison cell, one will get 3 times food, one will get a medical facility when a person falls sick, and some punishment, he has to break the stones, or some punishment will be there. So that is inevitable. So similarly, a king, some miseries he can't remove. Death is not that he can stop the death or something, but essentially the extra miseries that should be removed. Any other points, comments, or anything? We'll stop here. So next week, mostly we'll have the class online. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. If possible, I'll come on Wednesday. Otherwise, all 3 days we'll have online.